Hi, Tim Sells here. In this series of videos, I'm talking about what prevents somebody from wanting to become a rep. And this particular one is prospects think network marketing is too hard or too difficult. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So most of the time, the prospect is looking at effort. Okay, so what is the effort that it's going to take? And a lot of times what I find is that it's sometimes the effort of the effort. You know, when you want to work out or something like that, and you get up in the morning and you think about getting dressed to go out there, and it's the effort of getting out there. And so you're kind of pushing out there and you're thinking about it and you're right? But once you start working out, it feels incredible. And you tell somebody, man, remind me that when I don't want to work out, that I'm actually going to love it once I get started at it, right? And so that's one of the things. And then the other thing I want to talk about is elite people seek groups to advance themselves. And you might be thinking, well, Tim, gosh, I don't think of myself as elite, and I didn't either, but I wanted to be, all right? So that's a little bit of the topics that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so when you think about this from the person's point of view, they're looking at the effort instead of the reward. Okay, so the reward of working out is worth the effort of working out, right? And so the way that I've always viewed this, and even back in the military, and even back when we would go on, we called them ruck. Anyway, it's a big backpack, and I would think about it, and I'd be like, ugh, right? But they were like, the guys would be going like, man, what are you doing? Slow down, right? Take your time. And I'm like, no, I want to get the hard out of the way. That was always my concept, because I know I'm going to be working 8 to 10 hours a day. I want the highest return for my effort. And so if I was able to, hustle up the hill with that rucksack, then I'd get to sit down and wait. That was the reward. While everybody else was kind of just barely moving up the hill, I wanted to get up there and sit down. Okay, so that was always my view of it, and I don't really. I guess I got beyond that whole effort of the effort, and I just go after it. Looking at effort without experience. So a lot of times you're looking at the effort of what it's going to take, but you don't have any experience. But once you have experience, you put in efficiencies and economies of effort. And what do I mean by that? If you've never flown before, and then you're thinking about flying, and you're thinking about packing, and you're thinking about getting to the airport on time, and how long it's going to take, and how long it's going to get through to security, and all of that stuff, then you're looking at it without any experience. But once you've done it 5, 10 times, then you know the economies. You know exactly what you need to do when. So a lot of times the prospect isn't looking at once they get that experience, it's going to be a whole lot easier. And then people saying it's too difficult, or possibly saying I'm not qualified. All right, and I had to bring this up because you'll want to believe them. And so when I'm talking to somebody as a prospect, and that person is continually talking about the effort and the difficulty and blah, 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 or they blame it on time instead of the difficulty or something like that, I'm actually really listening for something else, okay? And I talked about this in the early part of this series of videos. It's the pessimism philosophy, and this is Arthur Schopenhauer. I can't win, therefore the only victory is refusing to try to win. Okay, so that is always on my mind when I start hearing somebody who's trying to talk themselves out of it. And I kind of let them talk themselves out of it. I don't want to work with that person unless there's some kind of a spark, there's something somewhere. So perhaps Arthur was mirroring his environment or his view of life. Okay, so I'm just kind of going back to this and having you take a look at this because it's something interesting. Oftentimes, a person's point of view has to do with the environment they're in. So if a lot of people around them are pessimistic, then it's likely that his whole philosophy was based upon his environment or his outlook on life. And so my question to you is, can anyone have an independent point of view? So regardless of the environment, regardless of the attitudes of people around you, can you have an independent point of view? And I would say absolutely. I would say it's more difficult. And so I like to get out of that environment in order to, continue on. But in any situation that I'm in, everybody else can be really, really upset about the car crash or whatever. But I can have an independent point of view, and I can say, you know what, I want to go try to find the person that's hurt here and see if I can help that person out. I want to, start running through emergency procedures and things like that. You see the difference between somebody who's, kind of leaning up against the guardrail crying, as opposed to somebody who can have an independent point of view and saying, no, I'm not going to lay and cry. I'm going to get out there and figure out how I can help, right? Okay, so I was looking for better, right? And I believe that it's an absolute fact because I saw it all around me. Elite people seek groups who they think will cause them to advance. And I'll never forget this phrase. First time I heard it, it pays to be a winner. And we were, what does that mean? Wind sprints, push-ups, pull-ups, swims. And I will assure you that I never would have pushed myself that much. Okay, so we were doing wind sprints, and it was in Coronado, California, about 1982, and we were running about a 40-yard sprint or so. That's my guess. I was thinking about it, and I heard this phrase where he says, "It pays to be a winner," and I was like, "Of course, right?" But I didn't realize that it's horrible to be a loser, because what they did is that whoever won, so if you can just imagine a sprint where all these guys run out this way. And then over here, whoever won got to sit out while everybody else had to sprint back and then sprint back there. And then he would join the race. And so guess who would constantly win? That person who won. And that's why they built that philosophy in our heads, which is it pays to be a winner. And then it's also horrible to be a loser. Why? Because whoever was last was cut. And then whoever was last was cut. And whoever was last was cut. Right? And so, wow, does that motivate you? and if you really want to be a part of that team. And I'll never forget that feeling that I've never run that fast. Well, why not? Well, because I didn't want to get cut. Right? And so that did make me better. I joined that team. Why? I remember when they showed the video in boot camp, and then it was, a bunch of guys getting beat up is what it looked like to me. In other words, like ridiculous runs, ridiculous swims, ridiculous, boating and various different things. And I, when I went into boot camp, or when I was in boot camp and I went back to my company after watching that video and signing up, they were like, "You signed up? Why? Why would you put yourself through that hell?" And I was like, I don't know. I just, and I know what it was. The very end of the video, the guy was just standing straight and you could see his just resolve, just like that straight up, I made it. Right? And I wanted to feel that. Okay. And so I think that, that when people are looking at network marketing, they want to get better. All right. At least that's what I assume is the situation, unless they're constantly telling me otherwise. And then, I know this is a stupid phrase, but it's as hard and difficult as it is. No factor. And what I mean by no factor. And so anytime we were in a planning op or anything like that, the guy who was leading the planning, he'd say something like, look, it's going to be difficult for us to get over this hill. It's going to be difficult for us to swim out to the submarine. It's going to be difficult for this, right? And we would always have this attitude called no factor, sir. And that was just the view of when something looks to be hard, you're projecting out the amount of effort that it's going to take, but a lot of people exaggerate that. And so if it was a 1,000-yard swim or a mile swim or something like that, we would always think we've already done that many times. So what's the big deal? Okay, so that's the way to have the attitude. And what do you think about this? Tell me your view. Is the effort worth the reward? And have you ever run into a prospect that was projecting a much bigger, you know, like a dragon, but it's really just a bird, you know what I mean? Like out of it. So let me know, and thanks so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, you might think of doing so. Thank you.